Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's me, Tremaine, with you guys for another weekly market breakdown. Now, thanks so much for being with us. Like I said, super awesome to have you guys preparing for next week with me again. Like usual, guys, we're going to go through the market, learn something, and while we're learning something, we're going to be preparing for next week. Now, we're gonna go through 5 pairs for today's analysis, guys. We're gonna go through AUDCAD, AUDJPY, CHFJPY, NZDCAD and NZDJPY. Those are the 5 pairs that we're going to be focusing on next week. They're providing great trading opportunities. Now let's get started, guys, with AUDCAD. We'll stick to the 4-hour on most of these charts. So higher time frame analysis, guys, we'll just stick to the most recent price action here and discuss what's been going on here. So what we've seen, guys, is prices consolidating in this area. After this consolidation, we've seen prices violating our lows of our consolidation and then breaking back above this structure. What we've then seen, if we just look at this most recent price action here, we can see prices coming in from the top, creating this low, creating resistance, violating our previous support structures and breaking back above structure. What we also see in addition is our previous higher structures being violated by this wick over here, or it's a wick on the daily time frame. Now, because we've come back to this neckline, guys, that gives us an indication of some higher time frame reversal structure. So we have our left shoulder, we have our head, and we can be anticipating and waiting for the completion of this right shoulder for a potential head and shoulder structure that could complete at the beginning of this structure. So this is the kind of setup, guys, that we're going to be looking for over next week. If we come into the most recent price action, what we will see, guys, is prices giving us a beautiful impulsive move to the upside, being able to violate previous resistance areas, showing us that sign of strength. Now, if we drop down onto the H1, we've been able to isolate a smaller structure. Now, what we have is our previous support area, guys, that the market has broken below, and we've seen the market break and close back above. Now, what we're expecting is for the market to come back and retest this area and respect this area, and then we find that bullish momentum. So if we look at this structure that we have here on the H1, what we will see is a beautiful descending structure. We are descending towards higher time frame support where we're expecting bullish momentum to come in. Now, if we look at the structure, we have our first touch, we have our second touch there, guys, and we could be expecting this market to terminate somewhere within this area here, guys, giving us that beautiful third touch pattern. Now, one of the setups that we're going to be looking for is if we see prices coming down, giving us this third touch structure, guys, we will then begin to look for those reversal structures forming in and around this area for those bullish biased setups. If we don't see prices really giving us an entry down low, what we will wait for is for prices to break above resistance, come back and retest previous support that were violated below, and then we find our bullish continuation trade. So this is our analysis for next week on AUDCAD, guys. We're expecting some bullish momentum from AUDCAD, looking to ride this trade and manage it according to our important key levels of structure. So we will be looking to manage this trade by the time we get to the 90% rule of this structure, as well as by the time we get to these extreme highs here. Once we get to these extreme highs here, guys, we will reevaluate this position and see if we can get in again. But I'm looking to take final targets on this position at our key resistance areas where we see an impulsive move from the sellers breaking back below some previous resistance areas. So this is our bullish bias on AUDCAD, guys. Let's go on to Australian dollar JPY, and we'll start off on the 4-hour. Now, on the 4-hour, guys, what we will see is a market that has been trending to the downside. So we've seen lower structures, we've seen resistance, we've seen lower lows. What we now have are lower highs, we have higher lows, and right now the market has been making structure within our extreme lows and within our extreme highs. So we know that these are major support structures, these are major resistance areas. Now we've concluded that we've seen price action creating structure creating structure within our important key support and resistance areas, meaning that this market is moving sideways. So we are currently caught within a sideways moving market. Now, what I would be doing here in the sideways moving market is paying attention to the important key levels of structure. So within this structure here, we have resistance, we have some support, we have resistance, we have new support there, and we have some resistance. So this is a key area where we've seen the market violate below and break back above. So guys, on AUDJPY, what I would love to be in the course of next week is bearish bias. Where I want to find this selling opportunity is from our resistance areas up top, for the downside continuation of any momentum that might follow through from this momentum that has been able to violate some structure to the downside. So I would love to be sell biased, guys, on this pair. We are in a sideways moving market, so we could see prices maybe coming down to tap this support one more time, and then we come up to violate our higher structure. Once we violate this higher structure, guys, that's when we begin to look for those bearish biased setups. What will help in addition is if we see structure giving us the confirmation for a beautiful descending structure when we get to this area of value. That's going to give us the information whether we should be looking for that risk entry or that reduced risk entry. So guys, this is our analysis on AUDJPY, guys. It's going to require just a little bit of patience for us, but we know in the market patience pays. A wise man once said, guys, that the market is a system that takes money out of the pockets of the impatient and puts money within the pockets of the patients. So patience does pay, guys, in this game. And so if we apply the patience and wait for this nice beautiful sell setup from high, guys, we will have beautiful risk to reward ratio, which is important in, or rather an important element within our system. And we'll also have those probabilities on our side because we will be selling in the direction of this momentum that we do see violating our support structures. So all that's left from us, guys, is to wait for the setup to form, wait for that beautiful sell, and that's when we look to jump in. Let's go on to the next pair that we're going to have a look at today, guys, and that's CHFJPY. Now for this pair, guys, we have been looking for some sell bias structure for a while. Just to recap on our higher time frame structure, what we do see on the 4-hour is some support structures being created as we see this creeping trend to the upside. Then we see all the momentum coming down, smashing all of those support structures nice and impulsively to the downside. So we see nice and beautiful momentum to the downside. After we see that momentum, we find the market starting to move to the side. So we enter this consolidation. What we've then done is broken the high of the consolidation, and we've broken back into structure nice and impulsively. What we do have in our most recent price action is also the confluence of this ascending structure. So we've slapped on this trend line here just to get an idea of what kind of an uptrend we have here on CHFJPY, since we're looking for those sell side setups. And now that we've got an idea that price has violated and closed below, nice and impulsively below this trend line, guys, we are going to look for some bearish continuation of price action. So what will warrant us to begin to look for a sell setup on this pair is if we see prices correcting towards our important resistance areas. Once we see prices coming into these resistance areas, these are the areas where we'll be looking to enter this sell setup. So guys, if we drop down onto the H1, you guys will see that just a little bit more clearly that we've broken and closed below our structure, and all we are waiting for from this point on is for some continuation. So on our left hand side here, guys, what we see is this market that had been making this move to the upside, and then we do have some previous support structures that have been violated nice and impulsively, and all we should wait for is for prices to retest our previous support structures and treat them right now as resistance. Once we see that happening, we're in the sell. So we've broken the trend line. All we're waiting for is for that confirmation. For this sell bias setup, guys, we're going to be looking to exit this position at key levels of structure. So we're expecting prices to come all the way down to these important structural areas down here, but along the way we'll be looking to manage our trade and partial out every time price gets to support structures where we could see buyers coming into the market. Once we get to this area and we're out of our full position, that's when we begin to look to see if our higher time frame structure will be violated. How will we know that? If we do see those reversal structures forming ready to break this corrective structure. So CHFJPY, guys, does have a lot of potential downside for us. All we need to do is just be reactive, wait for the price action to give us the sell setup, and the risk to reward ratio that's involved in the setup and the probabilities that are involved here. We're selling from the high of the range. It all aligns perfectly. So let's just wait for the setup here on CHFJPY, guys. We're looking for that sell bias. We'll go on to the next pair of today's analysis, which is NZDCAD. Now in NZDCAD, guys, we'll start off on the 4-hour, just make some reference to our structure, understand what's been going on here. What we do see in the most recent price action, guys, is prices coming towards our higher time frame support. So we have some higher time frame support structures in that area there. What we then see is prices beginning to decelerate towards this higher time frame support. After we've created these extreme lows over here, what we then saw from the 4-hour was a nice, beautiful uptrend. So we then saw lower structures being created, higher structures there, new higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. These are our important higher low structures, and then we see these higher highs. Now after we've seen these higher highs, guys, what we've seen is prices correcting towards our support structure. What we then saw afterwards is beautiful momentum to the upside. So we've seen the momentum. We understand that this price is still in an uptrend because we've respected our previous support structures over there. Now we're looking for that continuation of any bullish momentum. So what we've done is we've looked at our structure on our left hand side, and what we see is nice resistance over here, some support, beautiful resistance, some new support, and then we see prices breaking this resistance to the upside. So we're expecting prices to retest this previous resistance that was violated and then treat it as support for that move to the upside. Now if we go down onto that H1, this is where things get interesting and start to look absolutely gorgeous for us. Now that we've identified and we've established a beautiful directional bias based off all of that higher time frame reasoning, now we're speaking about what we're going to look for to be involved in this setup. Now guys, we see that we do have this beautiful impulsive move on our left hand side over here. We see this impulse violating nice resistance areas. After that, we see prices then beginning to decelerate and descend towards our support structures, where we're expecting a bullish continuation from price. Now that we know what we're looking for, let's look at the structure. We've isolated our support structures, slapped on a trend line. We have our support, we have our resistance. Now we're looking for prices to respect this support structure, maybe even just pull down just a little bit lower for us, and then give us that buy setup. Once we see prices giving us any type of double bottom structure, inverse head and shoulders, or break off structures to the upside, guys, we're looking for that bullish momentum, whether it comes after a descending structure, whether it comes at a reduced risk entry of an inverse head and shoulders, whether we need to wait for the break of the structure. Regardless of what, we've established a directional bias. We know we're extremely bullish on this pair, and all we're looking for is for a reason for the market, or rather for a reason, an objective reason that we can see on our charts that will allow us to execute this buy position. So things are looking absolutely beautiful, guys, on NZDCAD for this beautiful buy setup. All we need to wait for is for our identifiable call to action, something objective that allows us to enter this trade. So what I'll be waiting for, if I don't find the entry down low, wait for prices to break back above this previous support structure that was violated, retest, and then we're extremely bullish. How I will be looking to manage this trade, guys, is taking partials at important key levels of structure. So taking partials at this area, taking partials at the 90% rule of our structure, and then, guys, looking to see if we can manage our full position by the time we get to these extreme highs over here. So this is where we're looking to ride this full position too. So amazing risk to reward ratio, guys. We have some higher time frame confluence. All we need to wait for is for that beautiful setup and we're good to go. That's our bias for NZDCAD, guys. Lovely, beautiful bias. We'll go on to New Zealand dollar JPY. So on New Zealand dollar JPY, guys, you guys have probably been following this structure with me for a while, and you have seen how beautiful and how amazing the momentum has been on this pair. I think this whole week, guys, has been such a momentum packed week. The markets have just been moving. It's just been amazing. Hopefully we keep all of the momentum and we really just follow through on this recent momentum. So let's talk about the structure on New Zealand dollar JPY. So generally we have this market coming in from the top. So we see markets creating lower lows and lower highs. Now we'll focus on the most recent price action, speak about resistance, see prices coming down to support, establishing new resistance, violating our support structures to the bottom, breaking back above structure. We see this beautiful descending structure coming into previous areas where market had violated below and broke back above. And then we see this beautiful momentum to the upside. So which direction does this momentum warrant us to align ourselves? We see this inverse head and shoulders. We see breaks of resistance areas, nice and jam-packed full of momentum. So guys, in this case, we're going to align ourselves on the bullish side of things. What we'll be looking at first of all is our previous resistance areas that prices have broken nice and impulsively to the upside. We're going to wait for those areas to be retested for that bullish momentum. In addition, guys, what we have is this descending market here. Obviously we see our resistance areas down here, so we can also slap on a resistance trend line. We have seen prices violate this resistance trend line, so now this resistance functions as support. So we have tons of confluence, guys, on our side. If prices do give us further a beautiful corrective structure that corrects towards our important support structures, we will be looking for that bullish momentum from this trade, whether we have something beautiful to isolate that gives us a nice structure, or whether we're trading a nice beautiful inverse head and shoulders with a nice maybe reduced risk entry with a break and retest. Regardless of what, guys, we're looking for that bullish bias setup to come in, terminate at our previous resistance that has been broken above and could function as support for the continuation to the upside. We've seen the momentum coming in and it looks beautiful, guys. We want to be in the direction of the most recent momentum, and we also have this higher time frame daily inverse head and shoulders that could complete at the structural, or rather where the structure had started. So we are looking to manage this trade, guys. If we do find a beautiful entry on this position, we are looking to manage this trade by the time we get to important key areas. So if we find some key areas within here, that's where we'll look to partial out our position. We'll also partial out at the neckline of this inverse head and shoulders, and we'll look to ride this wave right until the completion of this inverse head and shoulders. As you guys can see, guys, there's amazing risk to reward ratio in this position. All we need to do is wait for prices to give us that setup, allow us to buy, manage this trade appropriately, and guys, NZDJPY will treat us good. So the patience will pay on this pair. We definitely do have to have a little bit of patience. We have our directional bias. We know that we're extremely bullish on this pair because of all of these higher time frame structures that we've spoken about. What we're waiting for is for prices to pull into some higher time frame resistance areas so that we have a little bit more confluence on this bullish momentum that we're expecting from NZDJPY. Nonetheless, guys, I think this is an absolutely beautiful trade. I'll be excited for it. We've come to the end of this analysis, guys. If you have received the value that was intended for you, please drop this video a like. Let us know, or let me know, that I am sharing value so that I can continue to do stuff like this. Otherwise, if you're not subscribed and you've reached the end of this video, it means that you found some value, guys. Definitely do subscribe so that you don't miss any future updates from me. Otherwise, this is Tremaine with our weekly market forecast. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. I'll see you guys in the future videos, guys. Have a profitable week. This week is probably going to be jam-packed with momentum. Let's be on guard. Let's look out for those setups and let's execute. We pull the trigger when we need to, guys. Have a profitable week, guys. Cheers.